Why didn't it start like this? It's a common question that I've seen referenced numerous times when talking about Final Fantasy XIV's Stormblood relic system, Eureka. Now, Eureka, for all its fans and its dissenters, did do something wholly unique in Stormblood. It gave us a whole different type of content with its own zones for us to use for the relic system, and currently there's both concern and excitement that we might see that same system again. Players are mixed because Eureka was new, it was different, and it was incomplete. The answer to the question is why it couldn't have started like this. It's answered by it was planned actually that way, but due to technical issues and delays, we got the Eureka we got. Hello and welcome to Work to Game. My name is Brian, and in this video we're going to be talking about the past and potential future for the Relic system in Shadowbringers. Being that we've had a huge influx of players over the last 9 months, we're going to touch on a bit of history, and then we're going to talk about what Yoshi P has said, and finally at the end, I'm going to give my opinion as to what I want to see for the next Relic grind. Now, if you're interested in what's being said, or just maybe in my opinion, here are the timestamps so you can jump to the section that you want. Or you can check in the description for the links, but let's go ahead and dive in and talk about the many faces of the Final Fantasy XIV Relic system, what we assume, and what we're ultimately hoping for with Shadowbringers. Now, if you're new, the Relic is the most powerful weapon in the game. Well, it will eventually be the most powerful weapon in the game for a few months before the next expansion drops. If you don't know, an expansion is a 2-year life cycle, so expect to see it around 2021 in the spring for it to be its ultimate powerful form. Now, these weapons will require a real grind, and that grind will actually get easier over the course of this expansion. It's been that way since the start, and there is no reason to expect otherwise. In A Realm Reborn, the Relic grind kicked off with quests, battles, fates, and more. The system pulled you back into a lot of previous content and introduced its own system and more. As the game was updated, so was the Relic, and for the most part remained a little less powerful than the current Raid Savage tier weapon. Before the expansion, the Relic was upgraded to be its most powerful, and you could even use that Relic to turn in for progress towards the new system in Heavensward. Heavensward improved on the ARR system by allowing you to work on multiple relics at the same time, as long as they were not on the same step. For example, I was able to have 2 relics going at once, but the second was always the previous step behind. This system, like ARR, pushed players back into the world fates, had them run old dungeons, and more. It was a real solid improvement over ARR, but it was still content that was designed to push players back into zones and previous content. In Heavensward, and unrelated to the Relic, the dev team also introduced a new system called Diadem. This will be important here in a bit. This really actually didn't land with players the first time around, and they had to re-release it later in the Heavensward expansion. Ultimately, Yoshi P has even talked about deleting Diadem from the game. As a system, it had its charm, but once Stormblood came around, it was primarily used for gathering. It's a real shame too, as it was connected to the free company airship system where you could send your airship out to gather for you, or you could team up and fly out to the Diadem with your free company. So Stormblood actually represents the first major change to the Relic system. At FanFest, when Yoshi P announced Eureka, he said that there would be 72-hour camp spawns, and this would connect with the Relic system. Everyone was really curious as to what this new system could be. Traditionally, the Relic system has been introduced around patch 1.5, so think 5.1.5, 4.1.5, etc. But Eureka actually didn't make it in time for that patch, rather it coming in 2.5. And with that patch, it actually came out not fully completed. Traditionally, the Relic system was introduced around the X.1.5 patch series, but Eureka actually didn't make that patch, rather actually coming in 4.2.5. And it came in, unfortunately, not fully completed. As a piece of content, it was interesting at its core, and it introduced new systems, the Elemental Wheel, its own progression system with the Elemental XP, and brought back the light leveling system from previous Relic grinds. The content was similar to that of actually Final Fantasy XI system for camping and grinding out mobs for the party for gaining that EXP, and then having that spawn notorious monsters, aka super bosses, aka Fate style super bosses, for players to go and fight for big rewards. The style of the content is a bit different from those in the community have come to expect from the game, but over the course of Stormblood and with more zones added to the Eureka system, it found its foothold and its fans. The general consensus is that the third tier of Eureka, Pyros, really made the system feel complete and whole, and by the time the fourth and final zone, Hydaros, was introduced, there was a lot there. Not to mention the special 72-person raid, the Baldassian Arsenal, which was a ton of fun to watch streams about. All three of these expansions and their relic systems had their positive attributes and their negative ones. Looking at Eureka, which was an evolution of what they learned from Diadem, was the subject to rules of the instance server, and thus players found it difficult to invite friends and have access to Party Finder and more. Plus the zones would shut down after a while, and trying to organize a group for the Baldassian Arsenal was a bit tough. But it was still new and unique content for the Relic grind. New zones and more. This is something that was really awesome to see. There is a lot of investment that went into the system, and what it did also do was pull players out of open world zones and from previous content. So a lot of the other main game didn't necessarily have that excitement of seeing full Fate parties running around the different zones and pushing people back into older content. However, with the introduction of the Moogle Treasure Trove events, maybe that's a thing for the past and is no longer to be needed for the Relic grind within the game itself. But now let's go ahead and talk about what Yoshi P has said and what is also then assumed by the community. Yoshi P has been interviewed and this question has come up about Shadowbringers Relic System, and it continues to come up. People are very curious as to see what kind of system this is and have often suggested a concept of a hybrid system in which that players can participate in both types of Relic System grinds. Now Yoshi P has commented on this, that they still haven't got a full answer of what they're going to do, but he does hear that message about what is going on and what players want, and they're trying to figure out what is and makes the most sense for players. But again, the message has been received. He has seen how Eureka kind of pulled people out of that previous content and the current open world game, but he still hasn't shared what his exact plan is. So a lot of this is assumption, meaning that we don't know if the Diadem 2.0 or if we're getting into Eureka and if that's even going to relate to the Relic system this time around. But he has actually said that they have learned a lot of lessons and they are going to be doing something along the lines of Diadem 2.0, which is really interesting and at the same time kind of curious as to see where that's going to go. Personally, and this is just speculation at this point, but with the shards that we've been shown and with the style of combat reminiscing of Final Fantasy XI in some ways, I would totally speculate and would not be surprised to see if they actually named this new Diadem 2.0 after the old zones from Final Fantasy XI, something like Dynamis or the Valkyrie Dunes, just to play a bit into nostalgia. Needless to say, we do know more exploration content is planned, and that the team is hard at work on it. I don't want to speculate too much here though, because Eureka is content that at its core, I liked, but it was missing out on so much of what I needed it to be. Here is where we dive into my opinion of it all, and here is where we ask the question, what do you want the next Relic grind to be? Sound off in the comments below, let's discuss what we love and what we hope for in the coming months. So for me, Eureka was almost perfect. But that imperfection served as a reminder as to what I've been missing, and thus I went back and played 11 rather than work on my Relic in Final Fantasy XIV, and honestly, I don't regret that choice. But what would have kept me in Eureka? Well, for me, it's simple on paper but complex in code. Number 1, Eureka should have been open world content. Number 2, Eureka needed to have a level sync option. Number 3, the Relic system needed to have other ways to progress, less efficient ones, or still allowing the roulettes or something to play into it. And number 4, Eureka should have also served as leveling content. Now, fans of Eureka tell me that they loved it because people were talking again, and you saw this. You saw the chat going off, lots of people, lots of memes, lots of jokes. The community really came together, and we haven't seen anything really like that except for actually in WoW Classic and what's going on over there and how the game kind of does force you to communicate if you want to be able to succeed. It takes it to a whole different level. But so for me, number 1 though fails because before World Visit, you run the risk of these zones being dead. And if someone on your server didn't really want to do Eureka, you really didn't have another option. And we actually do today though with World Visit. So we'll talk more about that here in a bit. But overall, if this was open world content, you'd have access to the Party Finder. You can invite friends to join you whenever and wherever. After I've had 5 parties break up because somebody's friend got online and they couldn't go and get into our instance, I knew that something needed to change. Number 2, level sync wasn't possible because the technical reasons, and Yoshi P has talked about this numerous times. But the team has also been hopefully making progress, and they've heard that kind of feedback, and hopefully we'll see more updates to that kind of system. But if a friend wants to play together, this would need to be key. Level sync already exists as part of the game and its content, but not on the party level. And with that being in an instance where things were already being synced together, this actually added way too much complexity to the system. So I understand why it didn't happen with Eureka. For me, number 4 is just to keep these zones alive. But as Eureka, and just like the Diadem, they don't really have much value in current content. And some of the team's best work goes untouched. If these zones could be used for leveling up other jobs because they have their own progression system and feed me XP, I could be diving in, working on my relic progression while I level up my other jobs. But beyond current content, if this type of gameplay is more your style, I'd rather be running this than running leveling queues and more. I could be grinding out mobs in Eureka today. I'd personally actually take that up as an option, but that's just me. That's just kind of where I'm coming from as a player, and that's kind of the nice thing about the theme park. And I just think that one or two more adjustments to these systems could have allowed for that. I had the same idea and the same frustration with Diadem when Stormblood came out. I was like, why can't we go and level up in that content? But now let's go ahead and talk about number 3. Eureka in Final Fantasy XIV doesn't need to be tailored to me, Brian, at all. Yoshi P and the team are amazing, and I want them to make the content that they want to make, but I have found that if I didn't have 2 to 3 hours to play, Eureka was really kind of off the table for me. Now, that's just me, mind you. I'm sure that there are those who enjoyed it for 30 minutes, but maybe I just wish the roulettes, or honestly just the elemental leveling system, was some type of Paragon post-level up system where I could gain the EXP and the light, but at a reduced rate. Let's just say 50%. Heck, I would even have taken it at a 90% reduction for just doing my roulettes as kind of my daily bonus, just adding it in there so that even if I can't play until the weekend, I'm still making a little bit of minor progress. Now, I could still obviously make that progress, and this is a fine balance, and I'm not saying that this is what it will be or what it should be, but it's just a thought that I had that would work for me personally, and a few others that I play with as well. In the end, though, I have a lot of hope for the next iteration, assuming that the relic will be tied into it, and it all comes down to the world visit system. Personally, I hope that whatever the Diadem 2.0 Eureka relic system is for the exploration content is that the team uses the world visit system to allow us to move into these zones not within an instance, but within their own world, thus giving us the benefits of Party Finder and hopefully adding in level sync. It would be a very unique twist on both a modern MMO and a classic one, and that's what I'm personally hoping for. But keep in mind, this is not confirmed. This is pure speculation, and this is what I want. Feel free to disagree, but be sure to let me know what you want in the comments below so we can actually talk about it. Did you like Eureka? Did you like the Fate Grind? What are you wanting from the next version of the Relic system? Let's talk about it, and hopefully we'll know more soon enough. Now, before I go, Elliot from Massively OP wrote up a really good article in his Wisdom of Nim series, and you might really enjoy reading that too if you actually like this video. So, link is in the description. Check it out and go give him some love and say hi. Anyway, that wraps it up for me for this video. Thank you for watching. We're going to be trying something new starting out next week where we focus different days on different games, and since we post a lot in both in the morning and in the afternoon, I invite you to join the workforce and hit that sub button. Maybe if you'd really like to, ring that bell so you don't miss a video. This has been Brian from Work to Game. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in my next video. But until then, take care.